Welcome to Deadball TV, everybody. Today we're getting back to talking about Asian football. If you guys are already subscribed, then you've probably seen our biggest storylines of 2025 for both CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. Well, today it's the AFC's turn. Buckle up. Now, I could have easily made this video 2 to 3 hours long. I think there are genuinely that many different storylines to watch right now inside Asia. So if there's a storyline I don't mention in this video and you really want to hear my opinion on it, let me know down below in the comments. Lastly, if you guys like videos about the AFC, about Asian football, make sure you hit subscribe. I drop hours of content every single international break about the Asian game, so don't miss that. Stick around. First storyline to watch here. Does Japan meet expectations? Now, this is really a two-part storyline, and part 2 will not be answered until the 2026 World Cup. But part 1 will be answered once World Cup qualification concludes. So that is going to be the main focus for now. Now, meeting expectations will of course vary from person to person. Since this is my video, I'm going to be talking about it from the point of view of my expectations for Japan, which is to finish World Cup qualification as a historically great national team. There are 3 pieces of history that Japan could acquire in this qualification. One of those has already been accomplished, and that is the most goals scored by a team in the final round of qualification. As many of you guys know, Japan have been running up the score against teams like China and Bahrain, scoring 22 goals in the first 6 games of qualification. The previous record for goals scored in round 3 was 17, which means with 4 games to go, Japan have already beaten the record by 5 goals. The second piece of history Japan is chasing are the fewest goals ever conceded in round 3. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this one's gonna be pretty tough. Namely because the record is 2 goals conceded, and that record is currently held by Iran, who have done it both in the 2014 and the 2018 qualification cycle, which is absolutely insane. And also explains why current Iranian fans are so pissed that their team is now conceding 2 goals per game against North Korea. As things stand today, with 4 games remaining, Japan have already conceded 2 goals, which means they need 4 shutouts to end round 3. Do they get it? Let me know down below in the comments. And the third piece of history that Japan is chasing is the most points ever by an Asian team in round 3 of qualifying. The current record holders for most points is once again the Iranian national team with 25 points, which actually happened during the last World Cup qualification cycle for the Qatar World Cup. In that qualification cycle, Iran only dropped 5 freaking points. A loss to South Korea and a draw, I think it was against the UAE. Now, currently Japan have 16 points, which means in the next 4 games, they need to accumulate 9 points or more. So 3 wins in 1 loss, and they match the record. 4 wins and they break it. And they would finish with a ridiculous 28 out of 30 possible points. Now, some of you might be like, who cares about qualification? Japan are looking at the World Cup. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I think it's important as football fans that we want our teams to chase history whenever possible. Because even though Japan is the strongest team in Asia right now, even though they have the biggest expectations on their back, there is no guarantee that that's going to be the case for the rest of time. National teams will always regress and ascend. This game is very cyclical, and right now Japan is on top, but it won't last forever. And the worst thing that could happen is Japan takes their supremacy for granted and doesn't achieve the heights that this national team is capable of. And I think if Japan were to achieve all of these goals, then they would be walking into the 2026 World Cup in the best place possible, in a place and a mindset that would best suit them to succeed. The second biggest storyline to watch in 2025 is Iraq versus Jordan. Who makes it out of Group B? I don't think there's going to be another team versus team storyline in my video here, but I just feel like the destinies of Iraq and Jordan are on a crash course right now. And that crash course could happen on the final match day when Iraq have to travel to Amman, Jordan for the final game. Or equally as possible is one of these guys could fumble it before then. Now, despite how the table looks right now, I would say as an Asian football fan, both teams have disappointed me. Both of these teams have very high ceilings, and I don't think it's being realized. Now, as things stand today, Iraq have the advantage because they have more points, and I would say they have the easier remaining schedule. Both teams have 1 match left against South Korea, but the difference is Iraq already played Korea away, and they lost 3-2. Meanwhile, Jordan took a 2-0 L at home in a game game where admittedly a lot of stars were missing, but now it's their turn to travel to East Asia. Iraq have completely mastered the art of boring 1-0 wins during qualifying. And in almost every single game, there are opportunities for Iraq to drop points, which they haven't done so far, but will that continue for 4 more matches? I don't know. Meanwhile, you got Jordan on the other side, who I would say have the better attacking players, no doubt about that, but they can't seem to put it together, and they've dropped 4 points out of 6 against Kuwait. And in all of qualifying, it probably played one really good game when they beat Oman. Both of these teams have issues, but everything will be forgiven if you finish in second place. You let me know in the comments, which team do you think is going to automatically qualify? Like I said, as things stand today, you have to go advantage Iraq, but I'm not going to be shocked at all if Jordan take it. And this kind of leads me into a mini storyline here. Will Jesus Casas survive 2025? Some people might get mad at me for saying that, but I think it's time we have this conversation. In my opinion, there were 2 managers in Asia who really needed good performances given the expectation and the talent of their national team. That was Katanic with Uzbekistan and Casas with Iraq. Now, unfortunately, Katanic has had to step down from Uzbekistan, which is a totally separate storyline, and I feel terrible about it because he deserved to coach this team at a World Cup. And now kind of the future of Uzbekistan's a little up in the air, but now only Casas remains. And I can say as an American, I can feel the frustration of the fan base through my phone screen. I mentioned how Iraq are basically 1-0 merchants, and I think that their defense is extremely strong. It's one of the best in all of Asia, but they keep getting bailed out by moments of brilliance, mainly from Ayman Hussein, who, despite his insane form for Iraq, just transferred again to a different Qatari club because he wasn't getting any minutes and wasn't getting any goals. And while Hussein was probably a top 3 player in Asia in 2024, is he going to do that again? Or did he just catch fire? I don't know. Now, for the sake of Jesus Casas, he is hoping and praying that he gets the same version of Hussein, because if he doesn't, I think he's in real trouble. And I don't think the disastrous Gulf Cup in which Iraq, the defending champions, got effing grouped, only beat Yemen 1-0, because of course they beat Yemen 1-0, they beat everybody 1-0, and then allowed a finished Saudi Arabia team to score 3 times on you? A Saudi Arabia that have 3 goals in all of round 3? Nah, bro, it's starting to get really peak for Iraq. And I'm saying this as an Iraqi fan. Like, I hope this team goes to the World Cup, gets disrespected by European and pundits, gets disrespected by CONCACAF pundits, CONMEBOL, and they upset somebody, much like they upset Japan at the Asian Cup. But I gotta be honest, y'all, with every passing day, I'm losing confidence. And honestly, any Iraqis watching, if you guys had to go to round 4, or God forbid, round 5, would you want to keep Casas, or at that point, would you pull the plug? Now, this next storyline is a bit meta, so bear with me here. Which team in a good qualification spot messes it all up? And for this one specifically, I'm kind of focused on Group A. Now, some of y'all will be like, Jack, why are we talking about Group A? Shouldn't we be talking about Group C? Because Australia are in second with 7 points, so they could easily fumble that. And yes, that's completely possible, but I wouldn't say Australia are in a good position. So therefore, they don't qualify for this question because they do only have a 1-point lead on the rest of the group. So I'm focusing on Group A because, one, I think Group C is just completely even except for Japan. In Group B, I kind of already touched on that in Iraq versus Jordan, where I think that is the true race. I don't really back Kuwait or Palestine to do anything. But Group A might be the most chaos we see going forward. And let me explain. I think Group A has the best mix of talent, desperation, uncertainty, and really, really scary bottom 2 teams. Kyrgyzstan and North Korea, while I don't think they have a prayer to qualify, nobody really wants to play them because they've shown in every single big games they're going to keep it close. And who knows, they might even score a screamer on you from 30 yards out. I'm looking at you, North Korea. Now, I mentioned it earlier, but Katanic is no longer with Uzbekistan, and they have appointed Timur Kapadze, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, who was the coach of the U23 team and actually brought Uzbekistan to their first ever Olympic appearance. He also made 2 consecutive U23 Asian Cup finals with Uzbekistan, albeit he lost both of them to Japan and Saudi Arabia. Now, I'm not going to pretend for 1 second to understand what this guy's tactical approach is going to be with Uzbekistan. This is much more of like an internal promotion than it is a outside hire, which is what Qatar have done. For those who are unaware, Qatar sacked Tintin Marquez despite winning the Asian Cup like a year and a half ago. I mean, this national team really needs a 30 for 30 documentary, because how they went from a defensive juggernaut with Akram Afif just slaughtering innocents left and right to a monstrosity of a national team that is eating 5 goals in 1 game against Fabio effing Lima in the UAE, some things can't be explained. I mean, at least Akram Afif is still slaying innocents and, just easily has been the best player in AFC qualifying playing, but the man needs help. It ain't enough. The Qatari FA recognized that, and they made the hire of Luis Garcia. Now, Luis Garcia doesn't have a mountain of experience previously. He was at Espanyol in La Liga, which I guess sounds good, but he got relegated. Now, that might be an unfair thing to say about him because he was hired mid-season, but they didn't really win a lot of games once he came on board. And outside of that, doesn't really have much else to offer. So clearly, Qatar have gone back to the Felix Sanchez glory days. They're looking at the Spanish Papi to come in and resurrect the national team. Is this going to work? I don't know. He was the manager of the Gulf Cup, and they got grouped. My point is in saying all of this is that we have no idea what Group A is going to look like after this long break, basically 4 months off since the last games. Now, looking at the games ahead, and again, hit subscribe because I'm going to be doing group by group predictions, analysis, live stream. Y'all already know that. Qatar have the easiest window. North Korea at home and Kyrgyzstan away. If Jack's theory of Qatar is still in this thing is going to ring true, they need to take 6 points. Now, UAE, who are kind of everybody's new dark horse pick, which I'm still selling on, have a doubleheader away against Iran and North Korea. There's no guarantee they get out of there with more than 1 point. Uzbekistan in the next window also have to travel to Iran, which this fixture has been like a certified 0-0 in recent years, but you never know because Uzbekistan have a new manager, because guys like Shomurodov are actually playing again. Husanov just transferred to Manchester City. I feel like the vibes in Iran's FA is constantly toxic. I'm not predicting a 5-0 win for Uzbekistan. I'm just saying there's a lot of things happening here. March 25th, after the window closes, Group A is going to look completely different. Do you guys think that Iran and Uzbekistan hold on, or does somebody take one of their places? Let me know down below in the comments. Moving on to the next storyline here. Which player ends qualification as Asia's breakout star? You comment your nominee down below. I'm going to read you guys the list that I have here. Marcelino Ferdinand, Indonesia. Ali Jassim, Iraq. Abdulkadir Husanov, Uzbekistan. Abosbek Faizalayev, Uzbekistan. Harib Suhail, UAE. Junhobe, South Korea. Joe Kojo, Kyrgyzstan. And Mohammed Daham from Kuwait. If there's somebody I'm forgetting in there, please do let me know. And I probably should have said this earlier, but I define breakout star as a name that people weren't really that familiar with before this cycle started. Now, to narrow this down into like Jack's top 3, I've gone with Abdulkadir Husanov, Ali Jassim, and my number 1 pick and front runner, Harib Suhail, which may shock some of you guys, but he's got 4 GA in 6 games with the UAE. And outside of just stats and boring numbers, he has clearly been their best offensive player. If I'm going with a guy who's like put their team on their back the most, I would go Suhail over somebody like Husanov with Uzbekistan, because even though I think Uzbekistan have been very good defensively, that's largely due to their tactics and the rest of the personnel. It's not like Husanov is a beast in the back line and Nezralayev and everybody else sucks, right? Like, this is a really, really good team, and Yusupov has been arguably the best goalkeeper of qualifying. Ali Jassim shoulders a lot of the responsibility for Iraq, but I wouldn't say the moments and the individual impact have been there to the degree that Suhail has for UAE. So even though I really, really don't rate Paulo Bento and I'm somewhat of a UAE hater, I would go with him as my front runner as of today. That is the video, guys. Those are my biggest storylines to follow in AFC in 2025. Like I said, I could have made this a Lord of the Rings trilogy length video. If there is anything I forgot, if it's a player storyline, if it's a coach storyline, if it's a group, if it's Asian continent overall, whatever it is, let me know down below in the comments, because I promise if there's a lot of interest, I will sit down and record another video and give you guys my thoughts on the situation, okay? Because I realize I left a lot on the table here, okay? There's a lot of stuff that had to get cut, right? This is not the, what was the director of Batman who dropped like the Snyder, right? Snyder cut of Batman. I realize that's not this, okay? So if you guys want to see something, let me know in the comments. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, another reminder to hit subscribe for more AFC content here on Deadball TV. Drop the video a like, follow me on social media, link in the description. I'll see you guys in the next one.